Did AI art just get a bit of a lifeline? In a prior video, we discussed Zarya of the Dawn, how a registration certificate was issued, but then when the US Copyright Office found out that the artwork was actually created by Midjourney, which is an AI art generator, they pulled back the registration and started asking more questions. We went through some of the responses there. And the Copyright Office just on February 22nd, last week, came down with their decision. And essentially what they decided is that the AI artwork is not protectable, but the text that Miss Kashtanova, the artist, added to the artwork, and also the compilation of it, because it was not just art, but it was a graphic novel, it is protected as a compilation. Now, just want to go through a couple of things, and then I'll describe a little more about a compilation, because it is different than having a registration that covers the artwork itself. So what Miss Kashtanova and her lawyers argued is essentially that creating artwork through the means of artificial intelligence by putting in prompts is similar to taking a photo, in that your subject, an animal, people on the street, whatever it is, you can't control them. The only thing you can do is take the picture, control the lighting, control, how long the shutter stays open, things like that. And they were trying to equate it to that. And the Copyright Office just didn't really go for that line of reasoning. And some of the main things they talked about were authorship and the fact that there's no control. The AI art just is generated. So I have a couple of highlights here. So process by which a Midjourney user obtains an ultimate satisfactory image through the tool is not the same as that of a human artist, writer, or photographer. The initial prompt by a user generates 4 different images on Midjourney's training data, while the additional prompts applied to one of these initial images can influence the subsequent image. The process is not controlled by the user because it is not possible to predict what Midjourney will create ahead of time. So the Copyright Office is saying, even though you can keep changing the prompt, it's so random that you can't really have any authorship in the artwork created. They basically say that the process operates randomly, automatically. It's not really the creative input or intervention from a human author. Even if you try to guide it, as Miss Kashtanova claimed, they're still saying that it's not is not originated through traditional elements of authorship. Specifically, they state that Ms. Kashtanova did not claim that she created any of the visual material herself, and used passive voice to describing the final images as creative, developed, refined, and relocated. And another argument was they were trying to equate it to tools. Artists use Photoshop all the time to touch up images, things like that, and those are protectable. But what the U.S. Copyright Office said is, rather than a tool Ms. Kashtanova controlled and guided to reach her desired image, Midjourney generates images in an unpredictable way. According to Midjourney, users are not the authors for copyright purposes of the images the technology generates. As the Supreme Court has explained, the author of a copyright work is the one who actually formed the picture, the one who acts as the inventive or mastermind. A person who provides text prompts to Midjourney does not actually form the generated images, and it is not the mastermind behind them. Because of the significant distance between what a user may direct Midjourney to create and the visual material Midjourney actually produces, Midjourney users lack sufficient control over generated images to be treated as the masters behind them. The fact that Midjourney's specific output cannot be predicted by users makes Midjourney different for copyrighted purposes than other tools used by artists. And I'm just summarizing this a little bit here, but essentially they're just saying that she's not an author. There's not enough she put in there just because she put in prompts to create it. So it's interesting to see this because how is this going to be equated to things written by ChatGPT or other AI content generators in the future? And what it seems like is it might be very fact-based based on how these AI generated platforms use your prompts. What sort of information do you put in to them to create an image, and how much control do you have? And it even says here, it is possible that other AI offerings that can generate expressive material operate differently than Midjourney does. However, on the record before the office, Ms. Castanova is not the author for copyright purposes of the individual images generated by Midjourney. So they're going to give her there's a sample of a page from her book up here, but they're going to give her the text that she created, since she created that, and then the copyright for the compilation of how it's laid out. That's similar to newspapers might get a compilation for how they lay out the stories, how they collect data, things like that. But that is a weaker copyright than if she had actually for all these images, because essentially someone could probably take one or two of these images and use them, and she would have no claim against them. There were some other things where she talked about that, she touched up the images, the lips, things like that. And the Copyright Office was just saying it still doesn't meet the minimum requirement for authorship just to touch up those photos or the artwork, since they're not photos. But they're going to basically cancel her old registration certificate and send out a new one that is limited to the literal element and the compilation. When you file for a copyright, there's always a space where you can list out, what prior works did you use in it. So even if you took a photo and then put art over it, and it's not a photo that you took, you're supposed to exclude the photo part so that you're only claiming what you actually put in. So we'll see. The Copyright Office is also supposed to be working on more guidelines for AI art in the future. There might be, depending on different AI, like it said, some better means to provide protection for someone that uses AI to help create content. But for now, this gives us a good idea of what they're looking at. And, what it's basically saying is the more control a person has over the end result is probably going to lead more towards the potential for finding that they are an author of that AI created content. And, we'll keep a watch on this, as we have a lot of clients that are interested in it and we're interested in it. And if you have any questions, feel free to put some comments below. And also, if you like these, please continue to subscribe. Thanks.